Hey everyone, Steve Schluter, Bold Coach, Maps Coach, here to talk to you about pricing. This is, I don't know how many ideations of the Intelligent Seller's Guide to Pricing that I've offered you over the years, and doing a little update because, well, I'm under the weather in my hoodie at home today. I'm going perfect time to updating the Intelligent Seller's Guide to Pricing. So this will be our November 2022 edition. And let me tell you a little bit about what we're covering today. Back when I got in the real estate business, the market was declining dramatically at a rate of 1.5% a month. And just sitting down with a seller presenting the comps wasn't enough necessarily to help sellers make the best decision. We had to educate sellers on things that influenced price, that influenced competitiveness, and what was the strategy that would smart seller would use to make sure they didn't ride a market down. They didn't lose money. And so this is what I'm going to share with you today. It's a strategy, it's a conversation that, when applied well, will get you the right price the first time, 90% of the time. It's a powerful conversation also for price reductions. So I trust you're going to enjoy this. So let's get into this. And let me set the stage for you a little bit first. The conversation I'm going to demonstrate for you is best done on a legal pad. It's not something you're going to present on a PowerPoint because that feels like selling. So what we're going to do is we're really taking an opportunity to educate a seller on the things that influence the pricing decision and them getting to where they want to go. Remember, guys, people aren't listing a house. They're solving a problem through listing a house, unless they're an investor and and then they're freeing up cash. But people want to accomplish something, and we're here to help them meet their goals. So as we get into this, you're going to go through the CMA the way you normally would. You go through the most recent solds to get you in the ballpark, the pendings that are the cusp of the market, and yet in a softening market, you got to really pay attention to the actives. What is our competition? And by the way, not the competition just in our neighborhood. What's the competition in any neighborhoods that we're competing directly against? I mean, if they would buy a home in this neighborhood, what other neighborhoods would they also be considering? And am I a good value across the board? Comes into play. So make sure you're looking at a broader market than you would have when we were in this crazy unicorn market we're in previously. So that said, I go through the comps. Another pro tip to really help them buy into the range of value, which is going to be important, is make sure on the competition that you scroll through the pictures on an iPad or something with them, or in your laptop, and they'll let them do the mental comparison, and you as well, of, hey, how is it similar or different? How is it better or not as not superior to the subject listing? To do an honest, so they can do an internal honest assessment of where they stand in the market. And once all that's done, now if they're just ready to buy into a really great assertive price that is going to get the job done, you don't have to have this conversation. And yet, if you're concerned that, man, another agent's telling them a higher price, or they have a lot of belief about where they think they can price it, then I would transition to say, now, by the way, right now, because the market is different, there are certain things that influence where we price it today that I'd like to cover with you, and just a little strategy around some of the things that influence price and the decision we're going to make about where we're going to price yours today. Can I go through that with you? And they will say yes. And then when they do, you're going to pull out a legal pad and you're going to draw what I'm going to share with you now. Now, let me put on my document camera. Now, I won't have this drawn out in advance, so I'll have a legal pad and I'll do this right in front of them. I won't necessarily put this up there. That's for your benefit. But I'm just going to draw these 3 horizontal lines. And when I draw the 3 horizontal lines, as I draw them, I'm going to be saying, now there's really 3 prices, options for every home. There's premium, and that's where we think it's the absolute most we can justify pulling out of the market right now based upon competition and the current data. And we'll talk about that. We looked at some of those numbers. There's the market price. This is probably the sweet spot that we know is going to get you moved to Tulsa by mid-March, which I know is your target. And then there's wholesale. If we just needed to get this done tomorrow, you didn't want to go active and showing, and you needed an all-cash offer. And then, so there's three prices for every home. Now let's talk about the things that influence where we're going to put it today. And then I'll draw these two vertical lines. And on the left side, as I draw the vertical line, I say, now there's really, the trend is the market is one of the things that we have to watch. And I write the word trend. We've got to pay attention to competition. What are we competing against in terms of the inventory? And on the trend, we're either trending towards an improving market or towards a softening market. Now, in times past, I had you guys put seller's market up here and buyer's market down here. And rather than doing that, because many of our markets, even though they're softening dramatically, are still by definition sellers markets. They've gone from 0.3 month supply to 3.5 month supply, which by definition is a seller's market. And yet the trend is moving violently towards the middle. And so we don't necessarily want to say this. We'll just use improving versus softening. Now, let's transition back into the conversation. So I've said trend, the factors that influence where we put it here are the trend of the market and the competition. And it's either trending towards an improving market or a softening market. Now, on the other side here, the two factors to consider are condition. What's the condition of the property in terms of its desirability and in direct comparison to what else is being offered? And what kind of time do we have to get this done in? Now, on the condition side, on the top, the thing's going to influence us going up or having it well staged, having it be model home condition. On the downside of that, things that would pull us down in terms of value would be neglect and a lot of deferred maintenance. And let me ask you this. I mean, when we think about these trends, Mr. and Ms. Seller, obviously you've probably been watching the market and, would you say we're in an improving market right now or a softening market? And if they're really paying attention, what are they going to tell us today? Well, it's softening. Interest rates are high and we've got more homes. I said, you're right. The trend is moving back this direction. We're even technically still in a seller's market, and yet we keep trending now more towards the middle because we have more competition and things are softening with higher interest rates and the fact that there are more choices for the consumer today. So let me ask you, on this side, where would you put the condition of your home? On a 10 scale, 10 being the top, 1 being the bottom, where would you put it? And let's say they say an 8. And you say, I would definitely give it at least that. And with a little staging, I think we can definitely even improve upon that. You've got a very well-kept home, well-maintained, and that's fantastic. And then on the timing side, you mentioned getting to Tulsa mid-March. That's, here we are, mid-November. We really would ideally have you under contract middle of January. So, kind of fits with the market time frame. We should be able to have you under contract. If we get it market time, 50, 60 days, you're really in good shape. We are in the holiday time, and yet I feel confident we can do it in the time frame. And we don't have an exorbitant amount of time. We have about a market amount of time. Now, let's say that somebody said we got all the time in the world. Now what I would say to them is they say, well, here's the interesting thing about time. In an improving market, time is our friend. In a market that's trending back towards the middle, maybe even towards a real softening market, even maybe towards a buyer's market, time's not our friend. It's just an opportunity to ride down, a trend that gets more and more pronounced possibly. Here's the issue. We don't know where this trend's going to stop. So based upon so these are all the factors that influence price, Mr. and Ms. Seller, and based upon what we covered in our comparative market analysis, it looks like market, I think we could probably agree, is somewhere near 335. Does that seem appropriate? And they should agree. And then you say, now premium, we had a couple of that were high 340s, low 350s, not really nice amenities. Probably the top of the market that could be justified now would be 350. And if we really need to get you all cash out of here, no hassles, somewhere around the 290 mark. And really probably not an offer you would want, and yet we could make that happen. So Mr. and Ms. Seller, understanding the forces that impact our decision tonight, the competition, the trend or the direction the market's moving, the desired time, meaning you being in, Tulsa no later than mid-March, that we've got a good condition in the property and we're willing to do some staging. What feels like a competitive price given the trend and the condition and timing factors that's going to get us to Tulsa in the time you desire? And I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, more times than not, they pick this or even a little lower because they don't want to get caught behind a trend because they're a serious seller. And if I present it this way and they really understand all the forces, they tend to pick a really competitive price if they're motivated. And if they're not motivated, you have to have the serious discussion around time and going, well, time is not our friend today because of the trend. And so if they won't put it at a competitive price, you know that they're not motivated. Now, so that tends to happen organically just because now they understand the forces at bear. You get that person that says, well, Steve, can we put it at 345 just to give it a shot for a little while since we do have some time? And I'll say, we can absolutely do that. And by the way, don't put any number down here that you wouldn't be willing to list it at. And yet here would be, if we did anything above market, I would say we could absolutely do that. And yet here's my concern is that because this trend is so pronounced right now and we don't know where it's going to stop, we don't know where interest rate rises are going to settle ultimately. That's a little bit of a gamble, and as long as you understand it's a little bit of a gamble, we can put it there, and yet I wouldn't stay there long if we don't get an offer. And let me help you understand, here's the other risk. The other risk is this. And I said, do you know what that line is? And they'll go, no, what is that line? And I'll go, that's future wholesale, which means if the trend stays pronounced, this becomes future market. And up here, 345 becomes future what? Future premium, or maybe even outside of premium, if we see this shift get more pronounced in this direction. I'm not saying we will. I'm just saying that the real safe play is to go maybe closer in here. And what I've had some sellers do, Mr. and Ms. Smith, if you want to do this, it's actually a smart thing to do, is people go a little bit below market to see if they can create an auction-like atmosphere and have it get bid up a little bit, maybe do even a little bit better than 335. But I would say staying somewhere a little closer to this middle is the smartest play. But again, I can justify that if that's what you'd like to do. What would you like to do? And folks, more times than not, they're going to pick right here at the midline or just slightly below. And this is just giving them wise counsel. Now, the last thing I'll say on this, if you get this person that wants to say, I want to get everything out of this I can, and I want to put it at 350. I want to put it at 360. I'll go, anything above this, I may question whether I take the listing. But if they say 350 and they have a real motivation to sell, I may come back and say, well, we can certainly do that. And let me share something with you about strategy. I said, you remember that Hasbro toy called a Slinky? And they'll go, yeah. And I said, can you visualize that you're walking down the stairs and you want to stop the Slinky, but if you're behind the Slinky and you reach down while you're going down the stairs, you're going to stumble and fall. And if you want to stop the Slinky, what do you have to do? Well, you got to get in front of the Slinky. And so because this trend being what it is, you could subject yourself to the Slinky effect, meaning, we put it at 350 and then, you go, maybe Steve was right at 335. And so you're ready to make the move here. And yet if the market shifted and future market is now, let's say 3 320 and you shift to 335, you're just still at premium. That became the new premium line, let's say. And so you could find yourselves chasing the slinky, not able to get in front of it. So sometimes we just got to get in front of the slinky, so that we can stop any bloodletting if the market gets really soft. So I just want you to be aware of that. You could become subject to the slinky effect and get way behind the market if it gets pronounced in terms of its softening. That's the Intelligent Seller's Guide to Pricing. It's really that simple. It's a complement to your CMA. It's helping them understand what influences price. And by the way, it's going to make price reduction conversations much easier as well. I'm sure you can see that them understanding what influences it, when I have a price reduction conversation and we talk about the competition, we talk about the trend, we talk about timing getting tight based against their goals, and then having to change our strategy. This is a conversation of partnership. Again, please do it on a legal pad. Don't turn this into a PowerPoint. This is not selling, it's educating. And when you draw it out in front of them, they're part of that conversation. They're part of that experience. And this will really work for you at a high level. All right. See you now. Bye-bye.